And we're back with the second half of Area 88 for the spoiler section.
Can I want to start this out with the fact that even though this is like significantly abbreviated from the manga and changed, it doesn't cover all the same story beats, I think it still does a pretty good job communicating like the absolute betrayal that has led to our main character being here, kind of the interpersonal drama on base, and what he's striving for, like personally, right? Yeah. Like we do actually get a really good kind of story, you know? Like despite the fact that it's short and it obviously leaves out a lot, ends kind of a different way.
It ends up kind of a cliffhanger
but
as well.
Still, you know?
I feel like they condensed it a little too much towards the end, although they do have hints earlier on.
Yeah. Obviously they did, because it's 12 episodes on something that was 23 volumes. Yeah. But I still think you do get a sense that the story itself has like an emotional payoff and like this is not just like an action shooter. This has tragedy and romance and action and comedy. Like I mean that's what the manga is critically acclaimed for. But in the end, I mean, a lot of this story has begun because of a tragic love story and a personal betrayal. I mean, that's what we get watching the anime. We hear about how he was tricked into this job.
Right.
But the woman he loves is still out there, you know? Yeah. And he wants to get free to be with her. Mm-hmm. And he was tricked because of a jealous friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I see the story there, and I like the story of what we saw, and this is where I think if it had gone on longer, it might have benefited more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because just because we start that so late, it feels like this feels like the first major arc that we watched at the very end there. It feels like the story only just barely kicks off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of why the series itself kind of just ends on the cliffhanger that it does, is because they weren't sure if they were going to get a continuation or not.
Well, I'm going to be honest, it doesn't look like they were ever planning to.
Okay.
Like, so this was just a CGI TV remake of the movies. The movies all came out like within a year. Like, it doesn't look like they were planning to ever do more. Like, this was not, let's leave off on a cliffhanger in hopes we get more funding. It appears to me that this was just, let's put out another piece of content with hopefully better graphics for the fans.
Being clear here, by the way, the CGI is pretty limited to just the planes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the actual characters are traditionally 2D animated.
Yes.
And that's fine.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. Like, there wasn't as much in the way of CG animation.
And the plane CG looks perfectly fine, especially for the era.
Yeah.
Also, I'd like to give kudos to the fact that they managed to maintain personal markings on the planes that are used by the combat pilots, because that's a very accurate to real life thing. Like, people do put personal markings on their planes, you know? And you would have those.
Like, since this is also like a mercenary force, you would expect a lot more personal markings because there's not that much regulation.
And even though this is set in a fantasy country in the Middle East called Arslan, right? This is pretty firmly grounded in a background of real-world historical events, because one of the members of the cast is a Vietnam vet. That is out there. So, like, obviously this is happening. So this came out in the 70s and 80s. I would presume then that this is also taking place in universe in the equivalent of, like, the 1970s, 1980s.
Yeah,
because if you've got a living Vietnam vet who's not that old, I mean, maybe a little further out, but if it's written in the 70s and 80s, it's not exactly referencing Operation Desert Storm now.
No, this is Cold War proxy wars.
This is Cold War proxy wars. Afghanistan, the Russians. That's what this is. And that makes sense. And I think they've done a really good job portraying that, because, I mean, it does feel a little bit like this is like the base of a bunch of mercenaries that have been recruited in a proxy war. That's what it is.
Yep.
Like, it's just, it's pretty fucking accurate. And I mean, the series is acclaimed for its accuracy too, like the planes themselves and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely.
I mean, holy shit, like, I could recognize some of these planes. Like, I am not, by any means, like, I do not have an encyclopedic knowledge of military planes, but there are just some that you recognize. Like F-14s and MiGs, like, you just recognize those if you have done any work in sort of military aircraft.
Yeah, no, like, those are usually very, very popular planes that you would usually buy. The only thing that
MiGs are Russian, F-14s are American, which has a lot of...
The only thing that really sticks out to me is F-14, because F-14s are usually very expensive, so usually countries will not buy them.
Yeah. But during proxy wars, they would be sold to mercenary groups and countries. So if you're looking at MiGs and F-15s or F-14s, that's America and Russia.
Yeah.
You know,
But
that's West versus East selling planes to mercenaries.
Yeah.
Like that's not all that weird. That's what they would have been fought. That's what proxy wars would have been fought with.
Yeah.
You know, MiGs are still sold to allies of Russia. I mean, the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that was the Soviet plane. It was the MiG. And what did the Americans fly and their allies? F-14s. Fucking Tomcats.
Yep.
Yeah, but no, like usually their allies, if they want to go cheaper, they would have used what Shin uses, which is a F1 Tiger. If I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
yeah. Well, that's the other thing. I think because, like, if we assume this is set in the 70s, 80s, right? We're not looking at anything super new.
Yeah.
And obviously it's going to be cheaper and easier to get a hold of older planes, right? So, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. But, like, even some of the other things, like, they have Apache helicopters.
No, they don't have Apaches, they have Hueys.
They have Apaches
I don't
in
remember
one scene, yeah.
Oh, wait, yeah, no,
Yeah.
you're right. God dang, I forgot
Yeah,
about
they even reference some of the civilian planes. Like we see someone flying an MD-11 and a Boeing 747. I mean, the fucking MD-11s were famous during this era.
Oh, yeah, no,
Like
you're
holy
right.
shit,
Yeah.
you know? I even saw a Cessna in one scene, and those are super popular for like personal flying.
Yeah.
I think Nick Nack's just laughing at me because I'm over here just like geeking out about like military and civilian aircraft.
No, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is very, very realistic.
There was even a fucking Mirage at one point, which is even older than the F1s.
No, Mirage is driven by, God dang, who's that? Who's the daughter? Not daughter. Niece.
Yeah.
Niece.
The niece
Yeah.
drives a fucking Dassault Mirage,
Yeah.
which hell yeah.
I mean, there are different version of Mirages, but that's probably more like one of the earlier versions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
Those
super
are
fun
always
that you can
popular.
like point out these things, you know, and see the different things. And that's another thing is like associating certain characters with certain planes and
Yeah.
fighting styles. I mean, you really have you go into fucking dogfights a lot of different ways depending on what planes you're using and what maneuverability you have.
Yeah. The reason why I give this more of a meh is the same with Nick Nack, pretty much. It's the surrounding characters, like they don't get that much in terms of everything else, and that's kind of also like why I want to see a little bit more, because when you watch like military shows, you do see that camaraderie or
Yeah,
like,
camaraderie. But because
Yeah.
they're a mercenary group, I don't necessarily expect as much camaraderie. I mean, they're out here for money. Like,
Yeah.
this isn't necessarily like, for example, I said that I've recently been watching NCIS and JAG, right? And that's kind of what got me into it. And, even fucking Maverick, Top Gun. Even Top Gun is military related. And obviously, if you have an outright military show, you're going to see like a lot of interpersonal play between these characters, like a lot of camaraderie. Most of them either volunteered or were drafted at this time. Like they're not necessarily doing this for money, as opposed to this is a mercenary group. They are either doing this for money or for some other personal reasons, or in the case of Shin,
He was
having
tricked
been
into
tricked
this.
into it, but still having to do it for money.
Yeah.
Which would change the interpersonal dynamic. Mercenary groups don't typically have as closely knit of a community, especially when they're competing, as like a military squadron would. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't I wish there had been more interaction with side characters, but I
it
kind of
makes
get it.
sense.
Also, it is only 12 episodes. Like this is
Yeah.
not covering the full scope, so I get it. And we do have some really interesting episodes. I mean,
There was one episode in particular that even I was like, oh man, that was a fucking good episode. It was the sniper episode.
Yeah.
That was by far my favorite episode
Yeah.
of the series.
Yeah.
You know what the funny thing is? This morning I was watching the season 1 NCIS episode about the sniper.
Ooh.
So I'm
Yeah.
rifling up in that.
Because I like when the sniper episode is introduced, like it's almost like a puzzle that they have to solve.
Yeah.
And there's consequences if they get the wrong answer, and they have to actually put out like it's like gambling almost. They have
Yeah,
like
big
Yeah.
fucking.
there are
Yeah.
huge consequences if they don't get someone out there correctly.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's definitely
Yeah.
like true to life. I mean, it was really interesting because you've got like the fear of, you know, the sniper around, but you don't really know where they're
positioned.
Yeah.
It also felt like one of the few times where the journalist, the photographer, actually did anything in the series too. Because he
Yeah.
actually has like a very integral role in that episode.
Yeah. I liked that.
Actually, the father, he had a backstory, wasn't it? He was in Vietnam, was it? Or
He was a war journalist before this as well. He might have gone to Vietnam. I don't remember specifically, but he was hired by the guy who tricked Shin into going to Area 88 to go get a photograph of his dead bodies to convince Shin's fiance at the time that he was dead.
Yeah.
Well, not
No.
Shin's fiance, Shin's
Girlfriend.
Shin's girlfriend,
who
basically.
is technically his fiance.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was Mickey. Mickey's the one who was a member of a participant in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Mickey was part of the Fighting Falcons of the U.S. Navy in the Vietnam War. Because remember, in episode 10, he's got all the flashbacks and reminders when the squadron gets decimated and there's a new pilot in one of the MiGs.
Yeah, which was one of his old teammates.
Yeah.
Though I do believe the war journalist also had previously done
I
something. He was
think
just
so.
washed out.
Yeah.
Can't exactly cover wars when you're kind of a bit wore out.
I did appreciate, I think, so episode 2, we were dealing with Boris. They called him like the
Angel of Death.
the Angel of Death, right? Because he's the only one who comes back from every mission, even if the entire rest of his squadron dies. One thing I really liked about that was the depiction of PTSD in him, because there's the part where the photographer's in the hallway, Makoto's in the hallway, and he's setting up to get some shots of like something or other, and then all of a sudden he starts hearing screaming, like yelling, and then we flash to Boris's like PTSD nightmares, like his trauma, you know, like then he wakes up in a cold sweat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do like the kind of emphasis throughout the show on like the sheer brutality of what's happening. This is not a game. Like they're not playing. Let's hop in our fighter jets and shoot each other down.
This is
this is a hellscape. This is actual hell.
Every
This
time
is
they go out,
real
there's a
war.
very good chance they're gonna die.
Yeah, this is real war, and that's why they're so unreceptive at first to the journalists, because they're like, you fucking pansy ass bitch coming in here to take photos and invade our lives, but we're in a war zone, like we're going every day for our survival.
Yep.
You know, we all have issues and problems, and all you want to do is take photos when we're not prepared.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then just like the absolute blue balling that Shin gets from his friend, his jealous ass friend.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest, I might commit murder if someone did that to me.
Yeah.
Like I'm at the very least aggravated assault.
Yeah.
Like holy shit.
That's some bullshit.
That's literally like assisted murder. Like man signed him up to die.
Yeah. Man signed him up to die, and then he's so, and then like towards the end of the series, he's like super close to getting what he needs to break it, and his contract, and then and then his plane is crashed, and his friend forces him to pay for the damages, basically sending him back the entire way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is why we kind of get I wouldn't consider what we end on a cliffhanger. I would just consider it kind of like the story does continue. More so the story continues than a cliffhanger, because a cliffhanger would denote that something has happened that we're all going but we're shown in the last episode that Shin is hopeful that he will regain all the money and get out of his situation. The girl did not marry the guy, and he's just going to keep running missions until he can get out of his contract. So it's not so much a cliffhanger as it is the story continues.
I do feel as an ending, we are blue balled a little for the Schadenfreude of the ending. Like,
well, yeah.
You don't get to see
them reunite or anything.
Not
Because
even
they
them
don't.
reunite, but I would have liked to see the friend when he finds out the girl found out.
Oh yeah, left it at the altar.
Yes. He just kind of appears, walks away, the girl finds out, runs, and that's the ending.
Yeah.
Like, you don't actually get to see for all intents and purposes, our main villain actually have this moment of, oh shit, this didn't work out.
Yeah. So I actually would be interested to see that in the manga, if this is like an actual like arc that they go into, since it goes on for longer, obviously.
Oh yeah.
So I'd like to see if that's like a oh shit moment for his jealous friend. Like,
It's like I wanted to see Lord Fuckwad get eaten by a dragon.
Lord
Yeah.
Fuckwad, you get eaten by a dragon.
From what I remember, and spoiler on that, yes.
Yeah. Thanks for your confirmation.
Yeah, it's very, very hard to find the ending of that manga, which I did try to find.
I mean, look, I'll let you know how it goes when I go looking because
It's so historically important. It has to at least be pirated somewhere.
yeah.
Well, the problem is also it's very old, so it's very hard to find pirate stuff that
But
old.
it was re-released in what was it? Because it was re-released in let me see.
I mean, this anime in and of itself is actually pretty hard to find anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty much, although luckily, all on YouTube.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Shonen Sunday repackaged all 23 volumes as 10 thick books under the wide volume product line.
Oh.
So it has been republished a few times. So it was originally published under Shogakukan. They published all 23 volumes, and then there was the wide volume. And then I believe the wide volume was republished in Scola in 1994 and by Media Factory in 2000 and by Katakawa from 2003 to 2004, it looks like.
Probably is like a.
However, I do not believe that this was ever published as books into English. It was released in magazines in English, which might be some of the problem finding an English translation for it.
And I do see, like, I just looked at some of the pirated things. They only have through like volume 2 actually translated in fan translations.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could find, like, I'm sure someone has done this, but I'm gonna have to hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to see if I can kind of succeed in finding it because I am motivated. I am motivated, if nothing else.
Do we have waifus, or do we have plain waifus?
I have a waifu.
Yeah, I've got a waifu.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll come up with one.
Waifu wars. Waifu wars. Waifu wars born.
I don't remember the exact thing, but it's the Crusader. It's the first plane that you see Shin flying right
Oh
there.
yeah. The fucking, was that the F1? That was the F1.
No, F1 is the second plane he flies.
Oh yeah, that's the
and-
replacement plane he gets.
Yeah.
Hold up, let me. I had the list of planes open, so.
Yeah. I think it's F8. No, not F8, because F8 was Bearcat. Wait, no, they started changing up the names again. I keep on forgetting.
There we go. So get the characters list. All right, Shin. Let's see. So he has across the series a couple. There's the F8 Crusader, the F5E, the F20A, and the Saab J35 Draken. So I'm assuming you mean the F8 Crusader.
Yeah.
Because I think that's his. Yeah, that's his first
Yeah,
plane.
that's
the
his
F8
first plane.
Crusader.
Yeah.
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 That's
was
the one
how-
we see him flying in the opening shot
Yeah.
at the beginning of the series.
And these actually flew with F4s, and this was technically considered the last gunfighter, and that's kind of the reason why I like that plane so much.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
Yeah.
that makes sense. Realm.
Shin Kazuma himself, because he's named after two very distinct protagonists in and
Not
of
named
himself.
after them, but yeah.
But yeah, no, like he's not named after them, but his name just so happened to contain two very iconic character names in and of itself. Yeah, and also just that he is all the Tom Cruise energy to me. Yeah. At least as far as main character.
I don't know,
syndrome.
man. He's a little too.
He's not as personal as Tom Cruise is.
Yeah.
But I would love to see Tom Cruise just voice over him as a character. It would be pretty funny.
I'm gonna go Kitri. I really like that she comes in. She's just like, I'm doing this entirely for fucking fun.
Yeah.
That's very.
Like she's the one character who she comes in and it's a game to her.
Yeah.
I think my favorite was Mickey coming in on that F-14 Tomcat. My wife was the F-14 Tomcat. That's a beautiful fucking plane, and I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it is truly one of my favorites. Like just the sheer beauty of a fucking F-14.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You
No,
know?
definitely.
It's the plane, but Mickey's secondary.
So yeah, I think that covers it for our waifus. Anyone have any last thoughts on the story that we want to touch on?
Not specifically.
Yeah, not
I
specifically.
definitely think that this is like I'm going to try to find a translation of this, like actively.
All right then. Well, I guess if that about covers it, we'll see you next time with whatever the fuck we talk about.
Yeah.
Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and try harder.